I, good morning, Mike Berlin, Chair of the Finance Economic Development Meeting. Call to order. Roll call, please.
Mike Berlin,
Here.
Laura Negro, Blake Ellefson,
Here.
Pat Kinney,
Here.
Ron Stendor,
Here.
Present. Thank you. Next item is approval of the agenda.
This is Pat. I'll make a motion to approve.
Ron will second.
A motion by Pat, second by Ron. Approve the agenda. All those in favor say aye.
I
Opposed, same sign. Motion carried. Thank you. Public comment. Anyone online? Public comment? Public comment? Anyone online? Anybody? Gary, you have anything? No? Good. Last call, public comment. Thank you. We'll move on. Approval of the minutes of September 27th.
Ron will make a motion. We accept the minutes.
We have a motion by Ron.
Pat will second, and then I have a comment.
We have a second by Pat. And I have a comment with regards to these minutes. It says item number 4, it says a motion approved by the executive committee meetings from the August 30th was made by Pat Kenny. Is that a typo? Was that an executive meeting or should that?
No, it was finance on August 30th. That was my comment also. That
Okay.
should just say finance committee.
That
instead
should
of
be,
executive.
that should be finance committee.
So can somebody make a motion to amend it and then,
This is Pat. I'll make a motion to amend the minutes to change in 04, changing executive committee to finance committee.
Ron will second.
Second, amended motion to correct the minutes to reflect on item number 4, changing the executive committee meetings to the finance committee meetings. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All same sign. Motion carried. M3, you're on.
Good morning. How is everybody?
Excuse me, we voted on the changing the minutes. Now we should approve the minutes as amended.
I'm sorry. Okay, let's go back up just a second here. Let's go back and call for the motion to approve the change in the meeting minutes.
The minutes as amended, yeah.
As amended.
Yep, right.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All same sign. Motion carried. Please note, Laura is not present. M3, you're on. I'm sorry.
That's okay. Good morning. We just have a quick update this morning. So we were able to renew the plan and the stop loss has been locked in. It is showing a 10% increase for next year. We are hopeful. I did just get a report this morning. I'm trying to see if I can share my screen here quick. We just got your updated HPPM this morning, and you guys are under 100% again from a loss ratio perspective, which means we're trending in the right direction towards the end of the year. Dan, I don't know if you want me to touch on HSAs. I know we had a long discussion about them at the committee level with employees and the interest in adding one. Employees really felt like there needed to be some consistency from last year to this year because there's been so many changes in the last few years.
yeah,
So-
no, the committee's nodding, no, we don't need to talk about it.
Okay, perfect. So we're keeping the plan the same, you guys. As far as dental, that is also going to stay the same for next year. We do think and will strongly encourage to build in a dental increase for next year's plan because you guys are only funding it. The employees are only funding it at about 50%, which means that the county is picking up the rest of it, which is okay, but we need the employees to recognize that. So that is something that I will talk about during open enrollment meetings, talking about how much the county is funding it. I am doing in-person open enrollment meetings the first week in November. I'm coming up, I'm going to do highway department. Heather put together a nice little schedule for me. And then I'm going to do Amber's department virtually because they do a monthly virtual meeting in November. So I personally am really excited about that because I want to make sure that employees are understanding the benefits and know kind of the work that we put into it and how truthfully we really do take into consideration where they're at and what they're doing. But that was really it. It's really simple updates this morning. We're in a pretty positive spot right now. Dan, anything else?
Questions, anyone? Go.
This is Pat, with
Hi,
healthcare
Pat.
inflation, it keeps going up and faster than the overall inflation rate. And, at some point we have to wrestle with how do we manage to continue to have those increases, not just from the county budget perspective, but from employees as part of their compensation. And so is there anything that you can think of that we could change or adjust or anticipate so that healthcare and dental care doesn't increasingly take a bigger part of the budget?
Yeah, I would say one of the things that I do think is on the docket strategically for next year is to add a second plan to what is already being offered so that we can add an HSA plan or a higher deductible plan that allows employees to pay less in premium and have a little bit more control, right, of their healthcare costs. I think we need to strongly encourage employees to use Aliphius and to start shopping for healthcare. We have that in place. No one has used it to necessarily choose to go somewhere else for a high quality, lower cost. However, they are using it for benefit questions and getting lots of good information that way. So I think if I can say one thing we need to do next year, it's going to be continuing to ask people to look at where they're seeking care and to understand what they're paying and the cost of it so that we can strategically look at our options next year and they'll understand why we're offering a second plan or why we're saying, hey, we really need you to start looking at cost of healthcare and what we can do about it. Alongside that, I am still working with the local hospital. I'm actually meeting with Hayward and Ashland and all of the rural hospitals in a couple weeks. And I'm hoping to continue those conversations and talk about what we can do from direct contracting to bundles to how we drive revenue to the hospital in Ashland, but at the same time say, okay, we're going to drive revenue to you. We would also like you to consider giving us a bundle package for certain things so that we make sure we're paying a reasonable cost versus just what's there and what they're charging everybody else.
Thank you. That's a nice list. And I think that should be put in writing so that as we go forward in the coming year, we do what we can on those things.
I will absolutely write up a memo and send it to Dan and Heather so that they can put it in the minutes or wherever they want it to be.
Hey, can you guys hear me? This is Blake.
Hi, Blake.
Hey, Kristen. So, really excited that you're coming up and doing some, sounds like educational type meetings with some of the larger groups, whether it's the Health and Human Services or the roads and transportation. But is that going to continue? So like as we kind of, because I think the Delta Dental or the dental issue is really, we need to make it clear that, the county, because we started paying more with this wage, we changed how we're compensating with this wage implementation stuff, and these benefits are, what I would say, are getting better. So the education to me is really the key, because I notice a lot of people need that. And so, making that a part of kind of the managers within these groups, is that how you're kind of focusing this? Is with
Yeah,
their
Blake, I mean, to be honest, like Amber was the first one to reach out to me, but so I am happy to present whenever. I feel like there are certain populations, right? I'm going to specifically call it the highway department, not in a negative way, but I need to be in front of them physically, right? To get this communication across. I am happy to come up and do that. If we consider and we decide strategically to add an HSA next year, one of the things I would do that I just did for another group last week, because they're adding one here, is I would come up and just do focused HSA conversations, right? To do pre-education. We're going to do the same thing with dental. We're going to do the same thing with, you know, whatever else needs to be there. I know the person from your EAP is presenting with me, so it's going to be he and I think it's a male, but we are going to present together. Truthfully, I would build in open communication to do quarterly, if not, you know, every other month for your team. Like, I am happy to do that because I agree with you, Blake. It's the way that we help them understand and we help educate. And the more they feel comfortable and like we're talking to them about it, I feel like the smoother it goes in the long run. So yeah, I agree. Yep. But that's my plan, is I'll be there whenever I need to be there. And I'm open to it. I hope with me coming this year in person, that will kind of shine the light, and other department heads can say, like Amber did, hey, Kristen, can you join for this? Can you join for that? If it's last minute, it's sometimes easier to be virtual, but I'm also happy to come up in person whenever I can.
You're doing good, Blake. Any other questions? Well, thank you. have a
Awesome,
good
you
day
guys.
now.
Have a great day. Talk soon.
Kristen, just quick question.
Yeah.
What did you say the insurance increase is going to be?
It's, well, right now, Dan, we're showing a 10%, but your claims did go down this last month. So what I'm going to do is kind of wait until the end of October, and we have the end of October claims, and then we'll look at it at the beginning of November. It's going to be a 9 or 10%. I'm really hoping we can get it to a 9.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Bye.
Item next, Mike, Steve. I don't see anybody. He's here.
There we go. I just turned my camera on. Now can you see me and hear me?
Yep.
Great. Dan, do you want to share the finance report, or should I?
I just made you co-host.
Okay. Okay, let's see here. Give me 1 second. I apologize. Let's see, where is my screen at here? Here we go. I had too many screens open. Can everybody see that? Is that
Yeah.
showing up? Okay. Yeah, so just in the way of kind of going through this, obviously through September 30th, you're 75% of the year completed. In reviewing it and preparing the report, I didn't see anything that really stood out to me that, you know, was a problem area or anything that, you know, I would call out to you to be worried about. Some of the higher percentage numbers, like you see here, this miscellaneous fund activity, is just because in some of these funds that are what I would call miscellaneous, and I do have them listed on the bottom, some of the funds are not necessarily budgeted for. And you can see here, if we look, that is your revolving loan fund. So I believe that you still retain a couple loans from the prior CDBG program that you're collecting both principal and interest payments. Interestingly enough, I believe you guys probably are remitting that back to the state after you collect it, I think is your practice. So I don't see anything bad there. On the expenditure side, things are tracking almost perfectly, you know, at 75% for your bigger funds. Highway is a little lower, although, you know, you're probably going to have more winter activity coming up in the next quarter. So hopefully that will be lesser, but only Mother Nature can tell us that. debt service, is higher, but that's because of when your debt service payments are scheduled. That's not abnormal. You've paid most of your payments already this year, so you're good to go. And of course, I did outline the miscellaneous. The 2420 was your uniform numbering fund and your marker remonumentation fund activity. I kind of put that on there because I know there's typically questions about that. So are there any specific questions anybody has with regards to your third quarter report?
On the law enforcement grants, it's not a huge number by any stretch, but do you have any idea if there are grants related to law enforcement that the county could work with local municipalities, townships to apply for that money, that we might be missing out on? And so let's say, Mellon wanted to apply for something, but they really don't have a police department per se, but still there may be grants where in some way Mellon could be, the entity applying and or with the county that might help fill some gaps or provide additional services that we otherwise wouldn't be applying for, as a county as a whole, working with, townships and municipalities.
Sure. Yeah, I don't think there's really anything out there but certainly collaboration with other municipalities probably, I would say, does get you some preference points on grant applications. I don't know specifically anything out there that would fit what you're kind of referring to there. I know there are at times special enforcement type things where, they'll go out and check speeders periodically or, target some area like that, that, you can apply for. I don't know specifically I didn't look in detail as to what they're doing this year. But we can certainly, I know Mike has a call, I think, with the sheriff department coming up here. We can certainly mention to them, that's something, and I'm sure they probably are doing that, but just to call it out and have a discussion about it, we can certainly do that.
Because the county is considering adding a grant writer, and if there are grants that could be applied for where the county and municipalities within the county could, be co-applicants, it might bring more money total into the county for law enforcement overall.
Sure.
So that's why I was, thinking about the grant writer position and, what would that workload look like and what potential benefits would there be for the county overall? When I say county, I mean, everyone, the other towns and municipalities, so.
Yep. No, I get what you're saying. Yeah, I think probably most of your opportunities there probably would be more federal level type things, but I have not looked recently. I think though most of those would be through like sam.gov or grants.gov. To see what funds are out there at the federal level that you could even compete for, to try to, submit an application and be successful at. But at times there are things out there like COPS grants and things like that, community oriented policing type activities. But to say what's out there right now, I couldn't tell you that.
I've researched this before, and the BJA and OJC have both got different training grants and things. So as we look into training new officers and such, there are those, and they have e-grants that they will do region-wide training. All we have to do is poke out to the DOJ at the state and let them know that we'd like to organize trainings. There are some of the other ones. I don't have them exactly bookmarked anymore. I had to delete my Google for a sec because something wrong with it. So all my bookmarks are gone. That was a whole bunch of years of stuff all down the drain, but there are grants out there. We have to watch out with some of those, some of them, because they do obligate us to do extra stuff, and with us already being stretched, it just gives us more to do. It's great to get the money, but if it gives us more to do, sometimes it's not worth it. if we could get things stabilized, or as we had talked before, possibly doing some kind of community policing. And, you know, raise our next group of people in this community policing setting, and then bring them up into some of these detective and such levels. I've talked with Brian a little bit, and I know he's open to quite a bit of it. It's just finding stabilization so they have time to, you know, jump that next shark.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
I think you bring up a good point too, Laura, that, you know, you have to watch the fine print on some of these grants too, because like you indicated, some of them call out that it might not be worth your while to go after the money. You know, you just got to be cautious.
Any other comments? Ron? Anyway? That's a good job.
Did
Oh,
everybody
just-
get a copy of this? I know I didn't send it until early this morning to Dan, but
No, but I will send it up. I will put it up on the web.
okay, awesome.
Have a good day. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Moving on to item number 7, Tri-County Quarter Loan Program Review. Pardon?
Yeah, I'm just looking for it.
As we all know, Ashland County was one of the counties that made a loan to the quarter. And at this point in time, the other 2 counties had forgiven that loan. And I would like to entertain a motion to also Ashland County to forgive that $10,000 loan.
This is Laura Negro. I'll make that motion.
Ron Stander will second.
We have a motion by Laura, second by Ron to forgive this loan. All those in favor say aye.
Oh, wait just a minute. The agenda item is discussion action draft resolution authorizing a loan to the Snowmobile Alliance.
You're on this is the agenda item before that.
Oh, wait a minute.
Item number 7.
Okay, I'm sorry, Tri-County Quarter Loan Review. I have some concern that the title doesn't fit the proposed action here. But that aside, you know, then there's the next item. To me, this comes down to how much, if any, does the county choose to participate in funding this? And I know there's people and businesses that benefit from this. And the question is, you know, from a policy standpoint, I'm thinking precedent here or continuing to go down a path that was started, you know, quite a few years ago with this. Are we basically saying, because this next agenda item, you know, is 50,000, if I recall correctly, you know, are we essentially saying, yeah, we made a loan and now we're going to forgive one? Are we going to continue to do the same thing? So in effect, are we going to fund, you know, this activity? And I think that's a policy decision. And it feels more like a board decision to me. I see pros and cons to both, but forgiving the 10,000 right now feels like heading down a path that hasn't been fully discussed or approved by the board.
I think those are 2 completely separate items. This was a one-time embezzlement that we're forced to deal with, that it put some safeguards in place to not happen. The second one, that's a request for a loan, that's completely separate, I think, and should be dealt with differently.
Thank you.
I agree with Blake. That first thing was set up because there was a situation created. Pat Doust went through, and I know Ron's been working with it, and they put in so many safeguards and reviews, and that thing is inspected better than your doctor gives you a colonoscopy. So as for having that piece done, that review was set up, because as you can see, I made the motion on that one. I seconded the motion. It was to make sure that we kept an eye on it. Because it was just starting to get redone at that time, but at this point, that piece, they've done very well, at least I think so with that. So I see them as two different issues and like Blake said, I just think we should take them one at a time. And I'm okay with forgiving this piece at this time.
Thank you. Go ahead, Pat.
My feeling is, and I'm just going to say this, I had no understanding that considering forgiving this was going to be considered. I think the agenda bill could have been written to let us know consideration would be given to forgiving this loan. This was a surprise to me. So one, and I'm not sure the title fits forgiving this either. I have a concern about that, but certainly the packet could have at least broached that. And now I'm being told safeguards are in place and there's nothing in the packet on this item or the next one that gives me any background on safeguards being in place. And I hate to say this, but it feels like other people knew more about what's being considered on this item than I did when I read the packet. And certainly some of you do know more from your involvement with this, but it should have showed up in the packet. I'm surprised by what's in here. I don't have a problem with the county giving strong consideration to supporting this, especially if we look at the adjoining counties and we look at the agreements and contracts in place and the fundraising that's done to support this and more data on economic benefit. I think it's certainly worthy of consideration. You know, for forgiving one here, now I'm being told there's safeguards, but yet I don't know what those safeguards are. They're not in my packet. And I also don't know what the practices of the other counties and organizations, you know, with the Tri-County Corridor are doing. I don't have any background on that. So more than anything, I just feel underinformed here and surprised. I'm not going to support this, but at the same time, I'll say, I think the county with due diligence and more information that this is something I can understand the county choosing to support. So I'm not going to be unhappy or upset with it. It's just lack of information for me personally to support this at this time.
So in the future, maybe perhaps what we could do is be a little bit more explicit. I think this is what you're looking
Yeah,
for.
I shouldn't be
explicit.
surprised that we're being asked to forgive the loan.
All right.
Based, you know, if I've read the packet, which I did, and this is a surprise, certainly somewhere in the packet that could have been indicated, and then a segue to the next item on why would we, on one hand, be asked to forgive one loan and then consider another. So that comes back to, okay, one, safeguards are good, obviously. And then two, I really want to know what the other counties are doing in their practices so that if we're talking to each other, which I assume that group is, that we're consistent with the choices being made by neighboring counties because we're all affected by this corridor. And yes, I understand there's a lot of economic benefit, but I'd also want to see, you know, that those entities that benefit in particular and those groups that use the trails are doing, you know, something that most people would say, yep, they're doing their fair share to contribute and help maintain this too, so that it doesn't become a burden that the county takes on fully over time. You know, how are we sharing that? And I have no information on that. So, you know, it's a really uninformed decision. And I really, you know, and this isn't the only agenda item on the county. I mean, there's been lots of them where I feel like there should be a lot more information in the packet. So when I come to a meeting, I have a lot more background than I do. And this is just another example of far less information that I would like for an agenda item.
Dan?
I was gonna say, Pat Dallas is on the line if you want to ask him any questions.
Well, I know Pat, and I know he's been heavily involved, and there's others in the room too. But it comes back to, I really would appreciate information in the packet. And I don't think it needs to be more than a page to provide an incredible amount of background. So I come into a meeting having a fair sense of the bigger picture here, and then have some time to give thought to questions I might have, or to do some research online to delve into, you know, if there's links to some of these organizations where I can do some reading there, et cetera. But that isn't there, and being asked to just have a conversation in a meeting without that background to read in advance, is not a practice I'm comfortable with. So again, I can understand supporting this, but I'm not ready to support it at this time without stuff in writing.
Thanks, Pat. All right. Motion stands.
My motion still stands.
Second stands.
I just, I guess because I was involved with this, that's why I know the historical. I do agree on the information in the packets. I think anybody from the community should be able to log in, look at our agenda items and see the information in the packets and be able to understand or at least have that information. So I agree with that. I'm comfortable with it because of the involvement that I've had from the beginning. I was on the county board when this happened. I actually suggested we do it in this format. Yeah, it probably could have had something in there that mentioned with the possibility of forgiving, but we do always have that as county board members as to be able to make those decisions, but I am still in support of forgiving this.
With that, any other comments? I'll call for the vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carried. Moving on to item number 8, draft resolution authorizing loan for the Snowmobile Alliance.
Okay, so this one doesn't have as much information because we'd be actually drafting the resolution and deciding if we even wanted to do this. But I'll let Supervisor Stendor talk.
During this past year, we've been trying to fix and upgrade everything, all the equipment for the Snowmobile Alliance, which involves all the clubs in Ashland County. While we were doing all this, we ran into a really, really good deal. A brand new Tucker cost about $268,000. We ran into a used 2012 Tucker with less than 2,500 hours on it. What we're doing is we're selling several of our older Tuckers. And in doing that, that's gotten the price down to $79,000. Out of that $79,000, we're selling a backhoe that we never use for 20-some thousand. And then we have some other pieces of equipment that we're selling to even offset that cost more. The reason we need the $50,000 is these machines, especially in good working order, don't sit there. It's something we have to move on as quick as possible. We did speak to Swiderski, which is the equipment company that we're getting it from. And we did send them a deposit and they will work with us on this. And we are financially able to pay back the loan. And if not through payments, through other equipment we are selling.
So you just made a statement, and don't take me the wrong way when I ask this question. Is it really the full intention to repay this loan?
Yes.
And does the committee understand that if we approve this loan, it's with the expectation this loan is repaid as opposed to being forgiven in all or part at a later date? And I'm asking that because I appreciate that some of you are really into the snowmobile and UTV and those trails and all that stuff. I know a lot of people enjoy it and there's an economic benefit, but it's not my cup of tea. So if you have organizations and fundraising, and this is truly going to be a loan that you fully expect to be repaid, I'm willing to support it. But I want to make sure that's the intention.
That is the exact
intention.
Can I point out, any decision today would go to the full county board for a final approval. So that's why we're drafting here today, and the actual resolution will be at the board.
Okay, and then would this resolution also have a payback schedule? Did I just cut off Pat?
Yeah, yes, yes, we'll give you a payback schedule. And actually, you guys can decide what kind of schedule you want right now too.
Hey,
Well, the-
Ron, can,
Yes,
you threw a whole bunch of numbers out there. You threw a whole bunch of equipment. Can we see a sources and uses? Just to kind of get a sense of, you know, you're paying 200 something, you're selling a bunch of somethings. But, you know, I just want to make sure that we understand exactly how much you're spending on this Tucker and then how much equipment you're liquidating.
okay, so,
I don't know if that's too hard to do. You know, again, I just want to make sure, because like Pat said, not everyone's snowmobiles, and it seems like we've been making a lot of loans to the Snowmobile Alliance. I don't know if just since I've been on the finance committee meeting, and I just want to make sure, what happens if there's a really bad snow and we don't get any this next year? Not saying it's gonna happen, because it feels like winter already half the time when I wake up, but, I'm just questioning, you know.
and they are good questions because the way we bring in our revenue is through grooming the trails. So we get paid so much a mile, and after we go past a certain point, we get what they call supplemental, which is even a little bit more per mile. And if it's a really bad year, it could be an issue, and that's why we're going through selling all this other equipment that we're not using. So, and we think the Alliance feels it's in a good position as far as paying the money back. Just right now, we don't have it to put out to get this equipment. And one other thing was, and I know it'll get confusing, one of the issues was with the Tri-County corridor, which had a huge theft of funds. This loan is for the Snowmobile Alliance, which is the 5 different clubs. And those clubs have all come together to say if there is an issue, that the clubs will make the payments. And we have that in our minutes.
Where's Pat?
So I support Blake's comments on, you know, a list of how you get to the 50,000 and the cost and stuff. But as far as a payment schedule, I mean, it's a good question that Laura asked, but that schedule, I would want you to work with the administrator and come up with a schedule both can agree on, because if we said 1 year and that doesn't work for you, well, then that's not good. But if you say, you know, 2 years, year and a half, 3 years, whatever that works for you on fundraising, et cetera, then you'd have a schedule that would work for everybody. So you two, administrator, and you should talk to get a schedule.
Yeah,
that
we'll
works.
sit down and make a schedule. Personally, I'd like it done in 6 months. But I'll take the leeway. So
They're predicting a lighter than normal snow year, so you might want to.
I keep looking and I realize.
So, and the contract it could be paid off early. And are we talking interest on this?
That wasn't discussed. But if you'd like to be part of this discussion, I'd be more than happy to have you sit in.
Well, if you're going to write a resolution, that should be addressed.
Yeah, it should be in anything the county board approves. So, I mean, are you looking at, I don't know, prime or less than prime?
I would say no more than what
Like-
the county is earning on the lowest money that it has invested that we could access. You know, if it's 3%, if we've got money earning 3% that we could access, and that's.
Comment, Blake?
Did the person who's selling you the groomer or the Tucker, are they offering financing, like a lease financing, or is it just you're gonna take a loan because that's how you've always done it?
That's how we've always done it. And I don't
You're only-
believe any financing was discussed with the equipment company.
This is Laura. I believe Blake's got a good point there if you want to check with that too. And then when we come to the full county board, it would be nice to hear if there was any options for financing and then go through there, because if something would fall through, I could see being the backup plan if there is financing through them.
Mhm.
Otherwise, Swiderski's got more equipment than God, so.
Yeah.
But I do appreciate Pat's comment about the interest and such, and it would be nice to also have in that packet the agreements with the alliance participants for this, but and no, it gets cold out in the winter. I don't do outside stuff. So, but I do see the economic development piece that we do have with this, and I do feel this is important, and having that more detail with this, so give us the options and show us what you got.
So the comment I have is that this is not a one-time deal. Because we get materials and services and supplies from the same company,
Yeah.
parts and materials. So, I'm not sure if we would discussing a revolving account with these guys or just but this is just not a one-time thing. Because you or the Alliance deals with this company all the time.
Yeah.
So therefore, okay. Do we want to take action on this here to move it forward? Or draft resolution?
Remind me, do we have a motion in a second? This is Pat. I'll make a motion to approve the loan.
This is Laura. I'll make that second.
I just want to clarify, this would be drafting, working to come up with the actual language, drafting it and sending it to the full county board.
Yes, with the interest, with the details,
Yep,
with
yeah.
everything, the whole shooting match.
Motion made, second by Laura. Further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Oh, same sign. Motion carried. So this will go to the county board. Thank you.
I abstained on that one, just.
Well, you sounded like a quiet yes. Okay. So noted. Thank you. Next item, 24 budget discussion. Is this a Mike and Steve thing or just us?
Yeah, I'm just looking for a copy of the budget. We haven't changed it. Here it is. But it's in the wrong format. Steve, do you have a copy of the budget that's facing correctly?
Let me see if I can find it, Dan. Hang on.
Yeah, mine's 90 degrees off. All right. Well, all right, for the time being.
I have it in Excel. I can share my Excel. Let me
Okay,
just,
yeah, please.
let me see here. Can you see that?
Yep. Okay, so, we haven't made any changes since the county board saw this. The one change we might have to make is health insurance, depending on where that number actually falls. Steve, I believe you said 9% is what we're budgeted at right now.
Yeah, currently built into the budget is a 9% increase. And I believe, I did a real quick calculation. I think 1% is equivalent to like 24,000. So if M3 came in at 10, you do have enough in your contingency to be able to absorb that as it sits today. But we would have to just move it to the departmental budgets.
Right. And again, there is a step increase built into this. So that means all county employees would get a 2.5% increase on January 1st. Aside from contracted employees and those who have employment agreements. or start date, start letters, that kind of thing. So somebody who was hired November 1st would not get an automatic 2.5% raise. Other than that, Steve, the contingency, can you tell us what the contingency amount is? Right now is 392,973.
That sounds right. Yep.
In that, we have $100,000 set aside for a grant writer. That'd be wages and benefits. Health insurance, FICA, retirement. We fully expect that once that person starts working and getting grants, their wages will be able to pay back with the administrative fees, which tend to be 5 to 10% depending on the grant. So $100,000 grant would be $5,000 at 5%, or $1 million grant would be $50,000. And so that person will be responsible for both finding the grants and then administering the grant, which is the hard part, all the paperwork that goes with it. Ms. Negro shakes her head, yes, yes. Then another thing is, while PPLE's talked about this briefly, and I know the chair there is in favor, there's $50,000 for a space needs study that you guys or the county board have to decide if that's what you want to do or not. I'm of the opinion that we know we need space, but exactly how much and where is a question that's out there. And part of that, if we're going to do that, part of that should include security for all of our buildings.
And with those space needs studies, they also look at all of our equipment inside every building. They put a life kind of data on everything. So we know everything from dollars to donuts. So we know our heating systems, everything else. Plus, when they do the space needs study, there are certain requirements from the state that we're supposed to be meeting that they will take into consideration for each one of the departments also. Because some of our stuff we're just kind of housing people like cordwood inside of buildings and such. And while that's cozy, it might not actually meet the state or federal standards for what we should have for confidentiality and things like that. But for that space needs study, it's well worth it to have everything have a time and date limit on it. Things that they can see that need to be replaced. And it helps our custodial staff along with our departments be able to plan for all this. Because as great as it is that, we had an estimate from 2011 for HHS, their space needs could be totally different from what that was. And it definitely is going to cost a tiny bit more. So having those kind of plans and have it put in a hierarchy so we know what are the critical needs that we have, what are the next ones. So we have a whole list of everything that we can tick off. It gives us as a county board a little more openness for everybody that we represent, but also a better plan that we can start poking away money when we know in 5 years we have to replace XYZ. So I just think it makes everything better for everyone if we have this kind of study done.
This is another topic where I don't recall seeing something in writing. A few pages that outline the rationale for doing this would be helpful. I don't know what departments in particular, need more space or what issues there are. So I don't have a beginning point in writing to look at this. And then there's the obvious question of what you finished with is if we anticipate considering some investment in spaces and equipment and changing practices, where would we consider looking or finding that money or setting aside that money, which in some ways comes back to the budget. If we really think we need a space needs study, where do we anticipate we could start finding funds for this, or how would we service that debt? We don't have that either. I don't want to spend $50,000 on a study and then say, oh, we don't have the money. I'd want to have some plan for that money before we spend the $50K.
Dan, would it be okay if I chimed in on this? Because I think, is that okay?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think what we're doing is we're just pointing out to you that in the budget, there's 392,000 roughly, of which administratively certain things have been targeted or earmarked per se. They would still need to come back before the full, process of being approved, whether it's the space study or adding a position to be able to access those funds. So by no means, if you approve your budget, are you saying you're doing a space study or hiring a grant writer? You would need to have that come back through to appropriate those funds from the contingency fund to the appropriate budget account for whatever purpose you would decide to do that with. It's just kind of an earmark to let you know that these items were kind of discussed and Dan has planned for it within the budget. Doesn't mean you have to do it.
Right, so we can pass the budget next month, but still discuss the needs of a space needs study in January or February. So, and if we don't do it, the money's just sitting in contingency for something else.
And it was just, this is another one of those things that the committees feed into, because it was PPLE who does all the property that looked into this, because there was a request made for $500,000 for their property. So, instead of just spitballing and trying to do this one at a time as departments come, if we lay out a good plan, that's what that was intended for. So Dan just kind of poked a parenthesis around a piece of funding in there just in case. So yeah, more information will be coming.
You'll still have to vote on it then specifically later. So, and again, if you don't want to do it, again, then it's just money that's sitting in a contingency that we can put in a general fund or spend on something else if we need it. So anyhow, that would leave a total balance, assuming the two items were approved, that would leave a total balance of 242,000 in contingency, which again is the beginnings of putting more money aside and building up our general fund and being able to take care of big emergencies as they happen. So I don't know if you have any questions.
Blake, anything? Anyone? Gary? No?
I also want to point out our debt levy is about $20,000 less than last year, which was, and last year it was $50,000 less. So slightly lower taxes.
Yeah, and I think you can see the screen here with the summary on it, correct? That I'm scrolling on right now.
Yeah.
Okay, because I know Mike is sending to Heather your budget publication, which kind of gets into your tax rates.
Steve, can you zoom in on that a little bit?
On this one,
Yeah.
is that better?
Sure.
Is there anything in particular, Lori, you'd like me to go to? Because it doesn't fit on the whole screen here.
Nope. Just it makes it that much easier to read.
Yeah, I think when you look at this, just to kind of, if you look at this column, this shows you the increase or decrease from 2022 or 2023 rather to 2024. So that's usually where I would, direct my eye first, not telling you how to read it, but that's what I typically do to see where your increases are here or decreases. Some of the decreases, like Dan alluded to, your debt service is 20,000 roughly less. Some of these other ones, uniform allowance, county improvement, and these law enforcement grants were moved into the general fund. So they would be up in whatever department they made sense to be, like the law enforcement would be with the sheriff, so on and so forth. So those aren't necessarily decreases. They just aren't being budgeted for in a separate fund, which your auditors always took those and put those in your general fund when they presented your financial statements, because it wasn't necessary to track them in a separate special revenue fund. So we're working with the county to make those changes so that it's easier to print financials from your Springbrook system and have them make more sense as to how they relate to your published financial statements.
And I do want to point out there's one item in here that may change. We won't know that until we get to the budget with the county board. And Steve, can you highlight the ARPA fund?
Sure.
We have, we have out to bid again, the roof repairs and building repairs. We put an estimate in there of what it is. We don't exactly know what it's gonna be, but we will get our bid by the end of this month. So I know we're getting at least one. So, once we get that bid, and I'm hoping it's in time for PPLA, so they can look at it. Then we can change that number accordingly. Just so we're all aware that that is kind of a floating number. We have to put something in there.
Yeah, I would add too, that like you're pointing out ARPA, there, like you're saying, if during the year something occurred and you wanted to access some of those funds that are not spent or like predicted to be spent or encumbered, because we do file reports with the federal government to show, like Dan is saying, we're allocating something for your courthouse emergency repairs to your roof and things like that. If I think there's a balance of 300,000 or 400,000 that wasn't earmarked yet for any project, so during the year, if something came up, those are also available. And we've talked with Dan and Sue about doing like a budget amendment form, which we'll have for you that, should something like that come up, either you approve like the grant writer or the space study thing or something else. There can be a form that's presented to show budgetarily where the budget monies are being moved, so that when we present to you your quarterly or monthly, financial summary, your budget numbers will have changed to be amended to match what you're saying you're going to spend. Does that make sense?
The other thing to point out is, so I don't know if you all remember the LACTF money. That's the 577,000 we got last year and this year. Basically, it's a PILT payment for the Schwamigan Forest. So we did include some of those revenues in for joint dispatch, which is something we've been talking about a long time, using that money for joint dispatch expenses. So that's sort of where that money's coming out from. That 300,000 roughly. We also did not include the carbon credit monies because we don't know when we're going to get that money. So that's not being included in the budget. We only want to, I have a feeling we're going to get more of the LACTF money when Congress finally passes the budget next year or something. But I have a feeling we're going to get more of it because the Senate's very much in favor of it. But we didn't include that because it's not for certain until it's appropriated. So any sources of money that we weren't sure of that we're going to get are not included. We don't want to spend money we don't have. So when we get, yes, sir.
I was just gonna say, can you remind me on that ARPA funds? Now, we have to have all that earmarked by end of 2024?
Yeah, we have to allocate it by the end of 24 and spend it all by the end of 26.
And then, so what it sounds like Steve said is there's maybe 300,000 left that has not been earmarked for 2024 yet?
Yeah, 300 to 400. I think it's like 370,
Okay, thank you.
360.
Yep.
So that's something the finance committee will have to start thinking about. How do you want to allocate the rest of it?
Up until the time we find out where this bid comes in.
Yeah, yeah. Obviously, we have to wait until the bid comes in
Yes.
because it could come in a lot more than what we're budgeting, and then we're
So it's nice to have a little cushion.
right.
Actually, unobligated ARPA funds right now are 393,274.
Okay, so it's a little bit better than I thought. So that would be our cushion in case the building bid comes in much bigger, higher.
Any other questions? You good? Blake? I can't see you. Thank you then. Let's have a good day, Steve.
Okay, thank you, everybody.
Thanks, Steve.
Moving on. Committee meeting review. discussion, let's go. This is a big thing.
Yeah, there was a request by one, maybe two members to two members to change the time of the meeting to something that works a little bit better for work schedules.
Suggestions?
I'm gonna throw out there 3 o'clock. Does that make sense better for everybody? It gets people home before it gets too dark and, you know,
I'll let
that's
Blake
better.
poke in on that.
I mean, it's fine, I guess. I mean, this stuff's at 9 o'clock. It just, these budget meetings can take some time and we have to have multiple ones, so it would just be easier for me to have it later in the day where I'm not missing potentially several hours of work.
I second his point.
I missed something.
oh, they're just requesting a time that doesn't eat up their entire mornings.
I'm open.
That's why I suggested 3 o'clock. It gets people home before it gets too late. Blake, you get to do your kid things at the afternoon still. I don't know.
Yeah.
You guys, it's up
No,
to
I
you.
think- I think 3 o'clock is a fair time. I think it gets, like you said, some people didn't want to drive in the dark. This is a hard time. That 9 a.m. to noon is really tricky because I have meetings a lot of times on Tuesdays, Wednesdays, Thursdays, and so I don't want to have to miss meetings, especially during budget times because of work and kind of getting to that point.
We want to do consensus here? How do we want to do this?
I don't know. I'm better with 3.
Other suggestions? Pat?
I'm fine with trying 3 and we can always change it again if we think something should change. But if 3 is soon enough so that employees are done.
Right.
That's the other consideration.
Well, it's soon enough that, like Lori Tate does the minutes and stuff. If we go a little longer, it's not keeping her here too much longer. And then, so if we go to 4:30 or so, or 5, I can always just tell her, have her take an hour off the next day. Or she can leave early on Friday or something. But that doesn't keep her here too long, which I think is the key.
Ron?
I'm fine with trying the 3 o'clock thing, just not on a Wednesday.
So is there a day a consistent day that works for everyone? 'Cause I know you guys, so do you want to say the third Thursday of every month? Or something, or the third Tuesday of every month? or-
Okay, I have caregiver group meeting that I lead on 3rd Thursdays, so that would not be the perfect one to do. But that was really good at picking out the one that I couldn't.
Or you could say the 4th Thursday then. I'm just thinking, so there's something
Spitballing?
consistent, you can
Yeah.
look up.
around and doing it, yeah.
Yeah, when you look at your
what's-
calendar, you can say, oh, I probably have a finance meeting that day.
I'm good with the 4th Thursday.
Or it could be the 1st or 2nd,
Yeah.
whatever you guys want.
See, I don't have the kiddo thing, so if Blake has kid things that happens on there, I'm okay with having a different, so.
Between 3 and 5, I should be fine. So, pick a date, that doesn't conflict, like a Wednesday or a 3rd Thursday, and just stick.
Oh, we're looking at me. Okay. It doesn't, besides that 3rd Thursday, it doesn't matter Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday with me, so.
I'm good with the Thursday. Make it the 2nd Thursday.
Is that a motion?
Ron will make a motion that we go the 2nd Thursday of the month at 3 p.m. for our meeting.
Motion on the floor,
I'll second that.
second on the floor. All those in favor? Opposed? Our next meeting will be on the November, what? 9th?
It probably won't because we have budget 2 days before, so I don't know if there's gonna be much of anything to do on the 9th.
Because we already have a financial meeting scheduled for the 15th of November.
I think that's an old meeting scheduled. 15th sounds like a Wednesday, doesn't it?
Yep.
Yeah, that's an old meeting, so that'd be changed.
TBD, to be determined.
Yeah. I'm gonna be honest, coming up that quick, I don't know if there's much for a meeting that day.
You got the county board on the 7th.
Yep, we got the county board on the 7th.
So is there a need for us to meet again between now and the 7th? No?
Only if you want to vote on the changes for the ARPA funding, if the bids come back much different than the budget. Otherwise, we will make that decision, we'll make that change before it hits the county board. Or, if something crazy happens between now and then. So that's kind of an emergency
Okay.
meeting right before the budget.
Leave that open.
Yeah, just leave it open just in case. In case, it's just there in case something crazy happens and we need to change the budget.
The second.
It would have to be,
Yeah.
well, let's say, to be consistent, let's say Thursday. The emergency meeting, if needed. Let's say we make that Thursday, November 2nd at 3 o'clock if needed. Yeah, and that would be if needed. But that way it's consistent with your new time schedule and if we don't need it, we don't need it. And we'll send out a notice. I'm just trying to make it easier now.
If needed.
Yeah, if needed. So that's if it's something needs to be changed in the budget that is abnormal.
All right. Moving on. Economic development. Anything? Okay. Moving on, investments,
They're in the packet.
sales report in the packet.
Yep,
Let's,
numbers are up again.
Let's enter into a closed session. Need a motion, please.
Ron will make a motion, we enter into closed session.
Second,
This is Laura, I'll second that.
all those in favor say aye.
No,
Aye.
roll call.
Roll call.
I'm sorry.
Mike Berlin,
Yes.
Laura Negro,
Yes.
Blake Ellison,
Yes.
Pat Kinney,
Yes.
Ron Stendor.
Yes.
So Dan, now do I remove
Yeah,
Max
please
and
remove
Blake and-
please remove everybody but Blake and Max.
Okay.
On closed session.
Oh, give me one moment, please.
Lori, you can stay in closed session.
Okay, I think we're good to go.
All right, can you hear me?
Yeah, we can, Max.
All right, and Lori, just to confirm here, is there a waiting room set up so people can't jump back in during closed session?
Correct.
Okay,
Yep, and Lori's gonna keep an eye on, just to make sure.
so Dan, if you want to introduce this issue, feel free, and then I can chime in.
Okay, so, so everybody, I, I don't know if everybody remembers or is aware of the Tyler versus Hennepin County decision the Supreme Court handed down this summer.
This is going to be an agenda item on the county board meeting
Yes.
in executive session
Yep. Closed session.
yeah, closed session. Are we looking to put this in the beginning of the meeting, body of the meeting, or the end of the meeting? Probably the beginning.
Where would you guys like it? Yeah, I imagine people are on it.
And of course, the direction that, or that, what do you call it, comment and direction from the Towns Association are going to be included as part of that packet.
Well, yeah, I have it.
Yeah, well, within a couple of weeks, I'm hoping, yeah. Yeah.
No, I just want to make sure that we don't discuss it with anybody outside of the closed session and such,
Right.
so.
Mhm.
Okay, so.
Verbal updates.
All right, so I did pass that to, sheet two, just to see.
Dan, could you please use your microphone?
I did pass out 2 sheets to you that I just recently received, and we'll get them uploaded to the packet. The first one is a bunch of counties with numbers in it. So right now, the Department of Revenue keeps 1.75% of our sales tax as an administrative fee to collect all the money and then redistribute it. As part of the Brewers spending package, which the Assembly is voting on maybe right now, there was an amendment to change that 1.75% fee to 0.75% fee. And it looks very much like that's going to go through the legislature. So what you see is, Ashland County should see an extra $18,000 in sales tax revenue, and more if sales tax revenue keeps going up every year. So it's not a lot of money, but hey, it's free money. We'll take it. The second one you see is something that's moving through the state Senate, is the real estate transfer fees. Currently, it used to be we get 50% and the state gets 50%. And over the years, they changed it to 80-20, with the state keeping the most. So what the legislature is doing is they're lowering the fee from 3% to 2%. And then by 2025, splitting the money evenly between the counties. So basically, instead of getting 60 cents for every transfer, we're going to be getting $1. So it's not a lot of money, but it's some money. So we're getting every little bit helps, and it all starts adding up. So, and then finally, as you know, I'll be heading to Madison right after this meeting with our legislators. I'll be talking about the closed session item, the final fix to Sanborn. Those are the 2 big ones.
On the town of Sanborn matter, I don't know if you have the information, but weren't there some people who filed a lawsuit around 06 that won in 2014, 15, and then received some compensation for that? And it seems like that is not in the conversation about trying to figure out, the fairness of all of this. Because if some people, 8 years ago or whatever, got a chunk of change, that seems to be not stated, forgotten, or conveniently forgotten, as far as, some of the same people saying, look, we're paying too much taxes now. I guess I'd like to know more about that history and those amounts of money, because someone raised that question with me and I really didn't know that background, but I don't recall it being stated, especially the amounts of money that some of these people apparently got in around 15. So,
well, I don't know about any money and people received in 2015. I do know that all those properties were exempted in 2006. Sound about right?
Well, the suit was with, the town of Sanborn.
Yeah, but-
and, after the insurance company pulled their legal team off what do you call it, docket, the town just caved in. And if I recall, there's like about a $287,000 award made to those three individuals.
By the insurance company,
Pardon?
by the insurance company.
Not by town of Sanborn.
Who got the money from the insurance?
No, the insurance, or the township had to make a loan.
Okay,
Made a loan for that.
so, but that all predates the actual lawsuit that we're dealing with. So in 2015, the Department of Revenue put all the properties back on the tax roll, and that's what got us our lawsuit. So, and then as we all know, the court ruled in their favor. And so as of right now, people who own, well, tribal members who are only members of the Bad River tribe, they couldn't be member of, say, the Ho-Chunk and own property. They had to be enrolled Bad River members who paid their taxes under protest, have received tax refunds through the year 2018. We received a chargeback, and they will take the chargeback money and pay everybody who paid their taxes under protest to present. I had a meeting with the governor's office last week on a way to distribute the 3.6 million that they appropriated. The governor's proposal is more generous to the county than the one we were going to propose. So I quickly said yes. It wasn't a question. So if that all goes through, and we're looking at getting $2.5 million, which will partially be used to pay for our chargeback. And then, you know, for money for future unexpected expenses that I can't talk about right now.
Dan, just so I'm aware now, the town of Sanborn is going to be funded by the remaining taxpayers that are in the township that are non-tribal members, and then the Bad River is going to kick in a portion of their what was taxes. Is that correct?
It's my understanding there's a 1-year agreement, and only a 1-year agreement, that Bad River is going to give the town of Sanborn $90,000 to help defray operating expenses, you know, snow plowing, road repairs, you know, to benefit tribal members, which will keep the levy down in the town. So according to the town, now you know, that's all they're telling me, and could be right, could be wrong, that their levy is going to be back to where it's supposed to be. The taxpayers are going to see what they're supposed to get because they're getting the money from the tribe. Now, again, that's a 1-year deal. So the town would have to make deals with the tribe going forward. And I'm sure they'll be talking to them, and we'll find out more as the tribal council makes their decisions and how the town makes their decisions.
Obviously, that's all going to be subject to the November election, tribal election.
Yes, yes. Yeah, and next month,
But that's going forward.
yeah, next month there's tribal elections for town chair, for tribal chairman and a couple tribal council members. So everything was subject to whatever they decide. So it's a year-to-year thing for now.
But I'd like to back up into the meeting here. A statement that had been made that $1.1 million we have set aside for doing our building repairs. You know, we do have what do you got?
ARPA.
A bid.
We're getting one at the end of the month.
We will have.
Yeah.
We had a company come in and do an inspection.
Yeah, we had a company come in from Minneapolis who specializes in historic buildings. This is what they do. They've seen everything that can happen in an old building once they start doing repairs. And they know how to fix it, they know what they're doing, and they are placing a bid. We will have a bid.
Question is how much?
Uh, well,
do-
we know it's gonna be in 7 figures.
I do have a question on that too. Were they asked if they are aware of any grant funding that can be used for the project because we are historical?
Yes, they were, and we'll be looking for more funding as we go along. I can tell you, I've been looking, there's not a lot out there for it. But there is for private parties, like a hotel. But for government, there doesn't seem to be much, which is disconcerting, but since government seems to have most of the really nice old buildings.
I don't recall, but, and I'm not sure if it's out there. What's the intended timetable for this project?
Oh,
Within a year?
we told everybody that construction can start as soon as weather allows. Which could be April, could be May, could be June. And that we want construction done by the end of September before we get snow. And that we would be open to at least having all the outside work completed in that time period, and the inside work could be done while it's snowing. We want to give them the opportunity to say, yes, we want to do this project because we don't want to hamstring them into saying, well, no, you have to get everything done in a month and that's it.
But then again, we want our judge happy.
We always want our judge happy.
We always want our judge happy.
But no, he actually very much wants the repairs done.
So with that being said, anything else to add?
I don't have anything else.
And next meeting date is to BD.
Yeah, next meeting days to be determined, I think, because you know, if we get that building, that opening bid and it's ginormous, you know, we're gonna have to have a meeting that week before county board. If there's a major change in the budget, then we'll have to have a meeting before county board. If not, then I think we're good for the month of November.
Motion?
I don't think we have to, but because we ran out of agenda, but I'll make the motion. We end the meeting.
Motion
Second.
adjourned, second by Ron. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Oh, same sign. Motion, oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Thing before everybody takes off. I'd like to commend this committee for having the foresight to approve the loan authorization. The snowmobile alliance, I think Laura touched on this. This is an economic development tool. And that's a good thing. So thank you.